Yes, what's happening, people? Welcome back to Gav Goes In. Big up to everyone that come through yesterday on the stream as well, with myself, Fitz, and with Owen. Good stream. Obviously we've done our Arsenal all-time 11. There was a lot of banter flying about, a lot of delusion as well. But yeah, listen, it was good, man. So we obviously picked our Arsenal all-time 11 post-Invincibles, and what was good is that, there was a few players that probably would have been certainties to get in there. But I think a lot of them probably had one season after the Invincible era, which probably would have slightly ruled them out, I would say, yeah. But, I think on the whole, it was interesting. I think there's a lot of players that we did kind of think they have to be in there regardless, and then there was a few debates as well. So, again, if you guys haven't seen the full stream from yesterday, make sure you go and check that. It is in chapters as well, so it might be easier for you guys to see what we're actually discussing. There was a bit in there actually where we did discuss something else, in regards to Manchester United. So that might be something interesting for you guys to have a look at. But the team we went with, which for me, I think is a strong team. Do I think it beats Manchester United's all-time 11 post the Sir Alex Ferguson era? I don't. But there is some good players in there. So we went with Jens Lehmann in goal. There was shouts for Petr Cech and there was shouts for David Raya from Owen. I mean, I didn't agree with David Raya. I know David Raya's got 2 golden gloves, but again, there's no trophies in the cabinet for him. So it was unfair to probably put him in there. And then Petr Cech for me was better at Chelsea. Again, for me, it was quite an easy one. Jens Lehmann, part of the Invincibles. I believe he had 15 clean sheets in that season as well. So, yeah, it was a no-brainer, man. And the others, I think you had Chesney in there. And I think, was it Ramsdale that might have been in there? But just because, again, for me, it was a no-brainer to put Jens Lehmann in goal. The back four, I think Ashley Cole was a no-brainer. Probably the easiest pick, you would say, out of all the players. Gael Clichy was very good for Arsenal, but I think when it comes to left-backs, and again, another left-back in Ashley Cole that went to Chelsea, or another player that went to Chelsea and had success there, more success there, you would say. So, yeah, we picked Ashley Cole. Gael Clichy was the only one, really. Monreal was in the list, but Gael Clichy was the only closest competitor to Ashley Cole, who was in there easily for me. And then right back, I was trying to push through Lauren. I thought Lauren had a chance to get in there. Timber for me is very good. But again, Timber's in the same boat as David Raya. Hasn't won anything. And a few others as well that we're going to mention in a minute. So I thought that, Lauren or Bakary Sagna was the obvious replacement. So the obvious choice to get in at right back. I thought Lauren was underrated. So I would have put Lauren in there, but we actually decided on Bakary Sagna, which, again, I didn't really have much of an issue with. So, yeah, he got in there. Centre-backs was interesting because I think me and Fitz definitely said Sol Campbell should be in there, and but again, the argument that Owen had, which was, to be fair, was valid, that Sol Campbell more or less had, I think, one season, I believe, after the Invincibles, you know what I mean? So, Laurent Koscielny was someone that I didn't think was going to get in there. But when you actually look at it, when you actually think about it, it's one of them things where, Koscielny probably is another one that is underrated. And we had to kind of think, if we're not going to include Sol Campbell, who gets in alongside Laurent Koscielny? Now, for me, Gabriel and Saliba can't get in there because just like David Raya and Jurriën Timber, they're both players that are, if you look at the last defenders that Arsenal have had of serious note, they're probably the best two. Well, to be fair, they are the best two, you would say. But these guys haven't won anything. So for me, I wouldn't feel right putting those two in there ahead of Koscielny or even Sol Campbell, So that's where we based on. I thought those four were the only four that was in contention, really. So we ended up going with Sol Campbell and Laurent Koscielny as the centre-back pairing. Kolo Toure was close, but I think, yeah, Sol Campbell and Koscielny probably just edged it ahead of him. And I'll say Gabriel Saliba have it all to do, so we can't put them in there. The midfield was interesting, to be honest with you. I think for me, Cesc Fabregas, you know, he's not only one of Arsenal's best ever players, but for me, he's one of the best ever midfielders in the Premier League, no doubt, you know. So, as I said, he was in there for me easily. And alongside him, you know, you would say Patrick Vieira, you know, no doubt. But I think Vieira fell into the category as some of the other players that we didn't put in there as well. Because I think he might have only had one season after the Invincibles era. So, but again, he didn't feel right not putting Vieira in there. But we had to go with the criteria that we were looking at. So what I would say, for me, we put in Santi Cazorla, you know, and Santi Cazorla is another player that was massively underrated, you know, and again, Cazorla, central midfield or number 10, and it's one of them things for me that Cazorla had to get in there purely because of his quality, you know, one of the most two-footed players I've seen in the Premier League, and yeah, for sure, he got in there alongside Fabregas. You know, there was other players like Wilshere, Ramsey, Gilberto Silva that could have gone in there as well. But I think just to get Cazorla in there with Fabregas, you know, an all Spanish midfield there, you know, was the right decision for me. And then further forward in the number 10, you know, you had the likes of Samir Nasri, you know, a player that I've actually played against when I was younger. And I saw firsthand how good he was. But he was competing up against Mesut Ozil. And obviously we had Bergkamp, but obviously Bergkamp falls into the category of the one season, I believe, after the Invincibles. So we went with Mesut Ozil, which again, another player that is massively underrated and a top player. And again, he was there by himself. You know, Odegaard gets nowhere near it. So it's only Nasri or Bergkamp, and obviously Bergkamp got ruled out. So it was a choice between Ozil and Nasri, you know, and I'll be happy to pick either, if I'm honest. But we ended up going for Mesut Ozil. And then out wide, you know, Alexis Sanchez for me, you know, probably post the most outstanding player probably since Henry. Sanchez has been that for Arsenal. And he definitely was in there, just whether we played him from the left or the right. Now, we obviously included Thierry Henry as well. Now, Henry obviously had seasons after the Invincibles. And the way that we looked at it is that Henry had to be in there, but so did another player, you know. So we went with Henry from the left, Sanchez from the right, which, again, there's no debate for me. You know, you could look at other players, you know, that I don't believe have any worthy mention. I think those two were the outstanding ones. And then the striker, you know, we went for our legend, Manchester United's legend, Robin van Persie. You know, Lacazette, Aubameyang could have had a shout, you know, but Van Persie was a no-brainer. And that's why we got Henry on the left to fit in Van Persie, Henry and Sanchez, you know. Giroud, worthy of a mention as well, was a very good player for Arsenal. But as I said, yeah, it was pretty straightforward with that front three in terms of how he was going to kind of organise that, you know. And again, I don't think there's no modern day player at Arsenal that deserves to get in the conversation with those players. You know, some people would say, let's put Declan Rice in there. Again, I don't know how Declan Rice can get in there when he's won no trophies and he's more recent anyway. The same with Gabriel Saliba. And the same with Bukayo Saka. You know, I don't think any of them four players, you know, deserve to get in ahead of any of them players that we've chosen. You know, until they win trophies or they've done it for at least over 3 or 4 years, then maybe we might have the conversation. So that's what we picked, yeah. So Lehmann in goal, Bakary Sagna and Ashley Cole's the fullbacks, Sol Campbell and Laurent Koscielny at centre-backs, Fabregas and Cazorla in the midfield, Ozil in the 10, out wide, Sanchez on the right, Henry in the left, and then Robin van Persie as the striker. So again, I was happy with that team, and I'm pretty sure Fitz and Owen was as well. So yeah, guys, make sure you check that out. Obviously, the full stream's out on the on YouTube anyway. Obviously, it's in chapters. Let us know in the comments what you think. And as always, make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you sub to the channel. Make sure you share the channel. And yeah, catch us next week, Tuesday or Wednesday for the next one. Obviously, we'll be discussing Liverpool's all-time 11, which again is going to be, it's going to be pretty much straightforward in a sense. But we're going to have 4 of us on, so it's going to be myself, Fitz, Owen's going to come back on, and then obviously Jonas is a Liverpool fan as well, so we're going to try and get him on as well. We're going to get him on as well. So we might even do that on Monday if we can, because our normal stream we do on Monday anyway. We might try and see if we can organise that for Monday. But if not, then it'll be either Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah, make sure you guys catch us then, and big up to yourselves. Take it easy.